Hello, hello, Black Bean Simpson here. How's everyone doing today? It is currently almost 4:30 p.m. January 29th, 2019. So I got about 7 articles up, seven pages up, and it's all about the lowering of standards. How standards in the Western countries seems to be falling to the wayside as progressivism, quote unquote, which is really a veil for socialism and communism. Progressivism these days is not what it used to be. But anyways, it seems as more and more they push, it seems as the standards that had made Western countries so great, essentially, was part of that added to the value that helped create and maintain that value is being fallen to the wayside for political correctness, for the acceptance of quote unquote diversity and multiculturalism. And as we see these standards being fallen to the wayside, we're seeing all these problems being created within these departments of that are essentially major parts of maintaining law and order, essentially within these Western countries. Europe and America and that. And right now, I came across an interesting article that was um, it's in Metro right here, as you can see. It's how the firefighting departments, and this by looks like I'm guessing must be in somewhere in the Europe, UK, because it actually goes into um like how much it cost in their money and euro money, and it talks. So this really isn't to do with America, but it's just an example of how like all these Western countries are kind of like following suit on this lowering of standards, and it seems to correlate with the influx of the quote unquote diversity multiculturalism. I'm like, that can't be a coincidence. I mean, that literally can't be a coincidence as Western countries grow essentially less Western. You see this less of a standard, and that's not good. It's actually a very bad sign. It's showing that we're allowing other cultures to literally to affect the foundation of what makes America culture, and that's no good. American culture needs to be in stone, essentially, just as well as their culture. But somewhere along the lines is where we just need to stop their culture affecting American culture or even Western culture in general. And I think the standards kind of connects with the culture. I mean, the culture is what created those standards. Without those cultures, those standards wouldn't even exist. This is why no other cultures has those standards. So I'm just really baffled by how people are not really standing up against this. This is something too. I mean, there's people who do talk about it, but there's very few people who really truly talk about the standards of things, of how they're just being totally thrown off to the side. And this isn't found in everything. So this each web page is something similar, but yet a little different. So this is talking about the fire department. One's in the UK, this one's in America. New York firefighters, despite failing crucial fitness tests, but women are becoming firefighters. So imagine if a woman comes into the burning building and she's the only one there, and you're a 200-pound man who went unconscious because you suffocated on smoke. Well, you think she's gonna have to drag you, and then what's the chances she's gonna have the strength to even drag you when she has all the gear on to essentially save her from fires that she's like running through. I mean, it's very silly. I understand that people want to participate and volunteer, but even uh, essentially men that do not qualify don't get accepted, and it's a shame because those men really want to participate in saving people's lives. They want to do something that's good, but yet they can't because they do not meet the standards, and that standard should apply to even women. Sorry, this is why we're having this huge gender problem between each other in the last 40, 60 years or so. Never existed until the last 40, 60 years. And then it goes on, it goes to police even have been lowering the testing scores. And this is in Dayton, and I believe this is in other states. This is just in one area that I could find really quick. Um, but it's getting bad. And here's another one. It's Hartford, Connecticut. I believe that's what Connecticut. Uh it's just it's not good, and it's even reaching into our aviation. I mean, and actually, let me go back to the police here. The reason why we're having so many problems with police, I truly believe, is because of the lowering of the standards. Lowering of the standards and also um, making it so where good people don't want to join the force is essentially making the police department have to lower their standards, accept people who really shouldn't be policed. At the same time, keep police that are causing issues because they're having a hard time finding good police officers due to all the scrutiny, or even the way how the mob mentality attacks these police without waiting for evidence and whatnot. And yes, I know there's always the good cop and bad cop. I get that. I truly believe, though, at least half, if not 80% of police really truly mean well. Sometimes their anger or sometimes the situation gets the best of them, and sometimes they react in a way that they feel is just best, and it isn't. It's just way us humans are. I don't put the full blame on them, but definitely believe that the training that they do get is not the correct training. Like there has to be better training of some sorts to know how to deal with situations, especially mentally ill people. That to me, I've seen way too many problems between the police and mentally ill people, especially with mentally ill people end up being in a casket in the end. And it's like if only if you knew how to understood to work with these people better, or if you knew that to use your taser rather than your gun in that situation, or yeah. But anyways, the lowering of the test score, I believe, it has created more of a problem within the police department these issues that are coming to be. You know, all these police shootings, or these police are not even acting on situations that they can even see. There's been situations that have literally people being robbed in front of them, but because it's like a mob of people robbing an individual, the police don't want to intervene in fear of them getting attacked by the mob of people because they're outnumbered. And I'm like, isn't that why you got the gun? You run off all that clip. No matter what, the people are running. I'm guaranteed they're not running at you, they're running away from you. I just like, I don't get it. Like, I mean, that's like the time you use your gun. Like, these people aren't being nice, they're being evil as hell, and especially if they're going to do it in front of police. I could only imagine what they would do when the police are not around. Alright? They're willing just to rob and thug and beat up someone right in front of police. They're willing to do way worse than that. Stop them before it gets worse. And then we got these aviation, where they're lowering standards in aviation. Could you imagine getting in an airplane with someone who is not truly qualified to fly a 747? I mean, that's scary, and that's just insane that they would even think about it. And they did. They had lowered, and some people were getting a license there, I guess, that they shouldn't have, and I think they were retracted, they were taken back or something. But I don't know. That to me is insane. But that's PC World. PC World creates a unsafe world. That's what it creates. And lowering standards too, and within the community colleges and universities, it's getting outrageous. So I believe that's why we're seeing a lowering of standards everywhere else, because it's been happening within colleges for quite a while now. I mean, just with affirmative action is a great example of lowering standards. You don't even need to have high merit, high skill, essentially, to get into college now. You just can get in through affirmative action. And that's not good at all, because then what happens, those people take this understanding that they should have this lowering standard because they got in because of lowering standard. And what they're going to try to do is take that example and force it onto the world. And then over time, those people from college get out in the real world, now start implementing those ideas, which now we're seeing years later coming to fruition. It's I forget. There's like a saying, whatever. You go to college after 5 years, whatever that happened in college starts to bleed out of college in 5 years or something like that. I don't know. But it's kind of true, because those people finally get out there and they start getting into the work field, and they start spouting off their ideology or whatever they learned in college, and then they connect with people, and it grows from there over time. It takes a while, but that's why 5 years or so or longer. But anyways, let's move on to this. I don't know what's going on here, but the lowering of standards, it is bad for all students, because what's going to happen is now students are going to come out of the work field, and because of, like I say, affirmative action, if you meet the affirmative action qualification and the job doesn't really know if you got in based off your actual merit or because of affirmative action, they're going to be like, well, they might not hire you. They might not hire you because you have no merit to show. Or what happens is it really makes them actually become secretly discriminative, to the point where it is kind of harmful to the business in a sense. But it's sad that what's happening now is that degrees are being handed to people that do not qualify for those degrees. So it's like companies are literally taking chances on employment. People don't realize that when you hire someone, you're actually investing money into that person. And when you invest money into that person and you fire that person, you have to let them go or something happens, you take a loss, actually. And small companies, you could say it's a easily $5 to $1,000 to maybe even a few $1,000 loss on an employment or an employer, or employee. I'm sorry. So what's going to happen is that they're going to have to hire someone and essentially invest that amount of money back into someone to get them to meet the needs for the business. This is almost like always. I mean, it's very few people who become employees for a business that don't actually essentially cost the business money to hire and learn and train to do the job. It's very few people that don't cost the business essentially to hire, and it's the truth, and people don't realize that. They just think a business is pick you up and then that's it. Like, you should just get checks, and there's no essentially con in a sense to the business. I shouldn't say con. There's not a risk factor to the business. That's probably the fault of business colleges not educating people in business better. So that after 5 years grows and becomes more well knowledge. But gender studies is, I mean, you go anywhere, mention gender study, everybody knows something about gender study. But you go around and talk about business economics, yeah, pretty much the opposite. And why has American education standards collapsed? You know, there's several reasons why. There's several variables, I think, to this. Just say one is kind of short-minded, I guess is a good way of saying it. But I do believe that there is essentially like a sine wave. There's a ebb and flow to IQ, to the G scale, and essentially people don't keep on increasing as they have kids. Their kids don't become smarter, and their kids become smarter, and so on. So it doesn't quite like that. It goes up and down, up and down, but it never quite bottoms out supposedly where it began. So wherever the gene, you say you could go back 3 generations, wherever that gene was, let's say it was at the bottom, and let's say you're 6 genes down now. So so let's remove the 3. So you start at a gene pool where you're at the bottom of that G scale, that IQ scale. Let's say it's 100, and then 6 generations later, you're um back to an IQ of of let's say 101. So you went up to 130 and then back down to your bottom in that gene pool, but it didn't go to 100. It stopped at 101. And then their kid, was a little bit smarter, and that whole sine wave, the ebb and flow, began again. And instead of going back to 101 or back to 100, it stopped at 102. Now, this isn't exactly like this, but in theory, it's kind of like this. Now, it takes decades and decades, essentially, because if your genes don't get with another really smart gene, well, your chances of having that consistent moving up in IQ in your gene pool, well, that's probably not going to happen. It's going to probably like ebb and flow more chaotic if you're super smart getting with someone that's super stupid, or you get the idea. Essentially, you're not going to have a better consistent flow of upward if you're not getting with constant people who are smart. And I think that's actually an issue, to be honest. And then you throw in then that's just biological. For whatever reason, biology does this. I don't think they have quite a clue why. I could throw maybe a couple ideas of why biology does this. Something to do with learning the world, and trying to understand it and compressing that information. It's trying to engulf a whole bunch of information, and then as biology reproduces itself, it compresses that information, which reduces it back down to a low IQ again. But in reality, it's really not. Like, who knows? Like, but anyways, I think that's one issue, and then you have this whole issue of welfare. Welfare, I think, has played another issue with the lowering of all standards, is because welfare kind of like removes a whole lot of teachings of like ethics and qualities and character and morals. And when you remove a lot of that, I really think that it's like putting an alligator in a fish tank. They kind of stick to that size, and if you put them in a bigger fish tank, they'll grow bigger. Same thing with like fishes. In that, fish will stay to a small size to the tank that they're in, and if they get a bigger tank, they'll grow to the bigger tank. Not all fish are this way, but I think something along this lines, like welfare, kind of does that to genetics with the IQ and that. It kind of like stunts people. Not all, but I think a big portion, a majority, where few people still can grow. Biology's like that. It always finds a way, but the majority now is getting the blunt. Where if the welfare wasn't there, it would be more like miracle grow. There would be just more of an influx of growth. But with this welfare, it's really stunting growth here. But I pretty much just gone way longer than I wanted to, and I always seem to do that with these podcasts. But I just want to really put out there that the standards in these Western countries they've been such attacked and damaged and destroyed, and I truly believe this has been one of the main reasons of why we're seeing all these issues, from policy making to science, to the fraud science, to the universities and college, and all the problems coming from them, from the HR departments and businesses and corporations. I truly think that the lowering of these standards has essentially is one of the root causes to all the problems that we're seeing. Now, there's a problem that's causing all the lowering of the standards, but the standards we need to understand, and we need to bring back consistency. As you can see, it seems like the left or the evil people, they don't like consistency unless it's to do with maintaining lies and destruction and a character assassination. That they like to maintain consistent, but beyond that, they'll change and adapt different language to try to always overpower good, to destroy good. If you like this podcast, please like and subscribe. If you didn't like this podcast, please still like and subscribe. Comment down below for advice. Just want to say hi, or anything. Thanks for watching or listening. Thank you.